Welcome everyone. My name's Matthew Erickson from Commvault, and I'm very happy to be joined with Russell Peters, Senior Cloud Architect from the Coca-Cola Company.
Hi everyone.
Now, Russell, down here in Australia, caffeine-free Coke is selling off the shelves. What's the beverage of choice in your hometown?
Personally, I enjoy a nice ice-cold Coke Zero, but I would say here in the hometown of my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, the hometown of Coca-Cola itself, that everyone pretty much enjoys our flagship brand, Coca-Cola.
Okay, great. I know I do miss those original glass bottles for when I'm drinking my Coke. So Russell and I are going to give you a walkthrough today on how you can optimize your data protection for your AWS services in multi-region, multi-account deployments at well over a petabyte. We're going to show you how to optimize for cost, performance, and agility. So for those of you that aren't aware of Commvault, Commvault and AWS have a rich history together. Commvault provides backup, migration, DR for its customers, and has been helping those customers get to AWS since 2009 when we first added the S3 Cloud Library support. Since then, Commvault's been working with Amazon to jointly release features like S3 Glacier support and EBS Direct API support that helps our customers take control of their data both from on-prem and into the cloud. And most recently, Commvault was announced an AWS Outposts Service Ready partner, so we can help you get your data out to your outposts as well. Commvault is an advanced APN technology partner and uniquely capable of meeting your holistic data management needs across your hybrid and cloud data estate. So enough about Commvault though. Let's take a look at Coca-Cola, and we're joined by Russell Peters today, and Russell's going to show us how he protects his most important asset, in addition to that secret formula, of course, his data. Russell, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Coca-Cola Company? Because these statistics are just amazing.
So I would say that Coca-Cola is a truly global company. We have a presence in practically every country in the world, and our array of products they refresh billions of people every day. That's billions with a B, and that's every day with a D. So that's a lot of refreshment opportunities, and that generates a lot of data that we have to steward and protect. Currently, Coca-Cola has over 500 brands with many multiple product lines, but this number is changing as Coke's current challenge is to adapt our portfolio of those brands to the rapid way of how people are refreshing themselves every day. And our business has to be nimble as a result, and that requires digital platform agility.
So thanks, Russell. I imagine as any sort of IT outage in your environment is quite significant, whether that's production, distribution, or even marketing, how did you approach the adoption of cloud and really make sure that your business was prepared to transform in the ways that you needed to adopt those new capabilities?
Yes, we started our journey to the cloud and specifically to AWS several years ago. We were having the normal on-premises challenges, such as lack of agility and long ramp-up times to take advantage of new technologies. And we saw that capability was in the cloud. We wanted to get there, and we wanted to get there fast. To get there and be most cost-effective, that requires basically retooling a lot of apps. And since we want to get there fast, we decided we needed to basically do a lift and shift. But lift and shift was going to cost a little bit more. We determined it was going to be about roughly 10% more in the cloud at the time than it was on premise. However, the good news is AWS has a lot of good methods that you can use to more than make up that 10%. Some of the stuff that we use is the reserved instances, the EC2 or compute savings plan for AWS, and Trusted Advisor is your best friend because it will help you see how to right size your VMs. Of course, you can right size your EC2s. You can right size, say, your VMs in your on-prem environment, but you're still going to pay for all that infrastructure that you won't have to pay for in the cloud. And we also take advantage of power off when not in use approach. We call that auto parking. And all that along with intelligent automation in the cloud that we use with Commvault itself.
Okay, so once you'd completed that review and you knew how you could adopt cloud to dramatically transform your business, you must have had some overarching principles and policies that helped educate your business on how to embrace cloud and transform their existing infrastructure and applications, correct?
So yeah, that's right. We have had a couple of guiding principles, and I would loosely describe those as cloud first for all of our new workloads. And right now it's basically a cloud only for our workloads. We also had the principle of to prefer the cloud native automation to meet all of our service requirements when possible. And an example of that is AWS Snapshots is our preferred protection approach for backups. And we also wanted to take advantage whenever those cloud native tools would not meet those service objectives, then we'd augment those with third-party tools. Again, you know, snapshots, AWS snapshots are great for backup protection, but at our scale, we needed a way to orchestrate those, and Commvault has helped to meet that for us. And we also, finally, we wanted to make sure that we maintain our cross-region disaster recovery for all of our critical business workload. And this basically has resulted in roughly about 1,200 EC2 instances. We have many databases distributed across RDS and still quite a number of databases on EC2. We operate in 6 regions globally with many AWS accounts between all of our business units.
Okay, thanks. Don't give away everything in the first 5 minutes there, Russell. So for those of you that aren't aware of Commvault Complete Data Protection, what you can see on the screen here are all of the services that Commvault comes together to protect, orchestrate, and even migrate as you're embracing cloud. And what you can see is Commvault can perform things like orchestrating your snapshot protection, providing recovery and replication for those snapshots, both cross-region and cross-account. We can help you take that snapshot data down into optimized S3 or even Glacier storage, and we can help you migrate your applications from their existing traditional locations into cloud-native services, and then protect them with 50 plus modern and traditional agents that give you that granular recoverability of your individual data elements, whether that be file, folder, table, database, whatever. Effectively, what Commvault's doing here is giving you a holistic, automated protection for all of your cloud services, and it's ensuring that your business SLAs are met regardless of how many regions or accounts or services that you adopt. So effectively, it means you can avoid scripting and avoid that technical debt as you embrace new technology, which often creeps in as you're trying to grow very, very quickly. This is all integrated with AWS IAM and KMS so that you can maintain your security posture. Now, Russell gave us a bit of a hint at what one of the key challenges is when you start embracing cloud and migrating, and that's that lift and shift infrastructure cost. Now, I highly recommend the AWS Architecting on AWS course, which is going to help you understand how to land your applications, but then transform them into a cloud-native format. So Commvault can help you automatically migrate to the cloud, but we recommend that you transform your applications and infrastructure to cloud native, like moving to RDS, like Russell is. Now, your data is going to look a lot like it does on-prem today. It's going to be growing a lot as you add regions and accounts and additional services. You're going to have unparalleled complexity, not because Amazon itself is complex, but because you're going from managing your 1 or 2 data centers to having multiple regions at your disposal and more AWS native services that your business will be aggressively consuming to help transform and accelerate your internal business programs. Now, security flipped on its head. Everything is outside of your data center and outside of your traditional firewall. So security is something you need to consider. And if your business is 24/7, and face it, we all are, they're often going to require you to give them a self-service capability so that you can recover on your own terms. So your app owners can recover 24/7. Long list, right? A little bit scary. Let's take a look now at how Commvault can help. So when we first migrated our customers, or started helping our customers migrate into the cloud, they wanted to help. They wanted us to deduplicate and compress their content or optimize their S3 storage consumption. And we did that for them using EC2 infrastructure. So Commvault uses EC2 to collect, optimize, store, and then replicate your data where you need it. But what we quickly noticed was that activity was only happening at nighttime. So what did we do? We powered down those instances when they weren't being used. And in fact, we see customers using that today to create protected areas of their data protection landscape that are effectively air-gapped and protected from things like ransomware and malware. But what's better than powering something down? Well, that is completely deleting it. And so with auto-scaling for access nodes, we made those completely ephemeral. These are the boxes that talk to your Amazon services and collect your data and then move it out to your S3 storage location. And those are now created at the start of the backup, used during the backup, and then completely destroyed. Now that's a cloud-native approach to data protection, unlike some of the long-running appliance solutions that we see in the market today. So I'm sure you're thinking, how long is that infrastructure actually going to be running in my account? Well, not very long, thanks to EBS Direct APIs. The Direct APIs allow Commvault to request the used or changed blocks in your EBS snapshots. This means Commvault avoids having to create temporary volumes and mount them up and look for changes within your data. Now, Commvault and Amazon worked together in our respective labs to validate and enhance this capability, and our efforts were very well rewarded with an 85% reduction in backup time, right? So that is faster backups, less runtime for your EC2 infrastructure, and ultimately savings in your pocket, which is always well rewarded by your management. So why are we talking so much here today about optimization? Because fundamentally, data has only one direction, up and to the right. And so, Russell, how much data do you have or do you manage in your environment today?
We have roughly about 1.2 petabytes, not metabytes, of EBS volume data being managed as AWS snapshots across our environments. We also manage hundreds of terabytes of EC2-based database backups and logs. Those all occur and are streamed to S3 cloud-based libraries across all of our 6 AWS regions, all compressed and deduped.
Okay, so the message here is that Commvault can reduce that storage with deduplication and compression. That's going to save on your S3 storage costs, and it's going to save you on your network egress fees if you need to replicate that between regions. But snapshots are not all bad. Snapshots are a fantastic way of recovering your EC2 and EBS infrastructure rapidly. But they may not be the most cost-effective way of storing your backup and archive data for long-term retention. So with Commvault storage tiering, you can take those snapshots, use those for your immediate operational recovery, tier down to S3 IA, then down to Glacier and Deep Archive if you like, and this is going to result in a dramatic storage saving for content that you're storing for much longer periods. Think months or years. Think medical records or financial records. So yeah, it's just a way of controlling where your data is stored to make sure it's optimized for its value to the business. So we've been talking a lot today about regions, accounts, multiple AWS services. How do you get your head around all of this data movement? Simple, automation. So Russell, can you tell us a little bit about how you use snapshots within the AWS region today?
So yes, we orchestrate all of our EC2 and RDS snapshots with Commvault. And in addition to managing local EBS and RDS snapshots, for our business critical workloads, once Commvault has directed AWS to create our snapshots, we have it so it's configured to automatically replicate any snapshots for those business critical workloads. AWS will automatically copy that to our specified DR region.
And how do you identify workloads that require that additional level of protection?
We leverage AWS tags, which Commvault basically uses as a trigger to perform local and DR protection and our replication. So instead of having to manage Commvault so much, we manage those tags, and we manage those tags in accordance to our business requirements.
Okay, great. So what Russell just described there was effectively using AWS native tags to discover and automatically protect his workloads, and then Commvault applies our SLAs or our policies and plans to that configuration to automatically schedule both the protection and the replication of that data. And in fact, Commvault utilizes AI and machine learning to coordinate all of those data management activities that are occurring across your business, be that backup, replication, DR events, even migration activities to and from your outpost or your on-prem location. And the key here is automation. You need to be automating this capability so that you can leverage multiple AWS services but still meet the business SLAs for protection within your business. Now, one of the first challenges our customers have when they come to us is, how do we even get started with all of this? Well, fortunately, Commvault can automate that too. VM conversion is the ability to take your on-prem virtual machines and migrate them directly into Amazon. And once a system is virtualized, Commvault can effectively migrate that system into the AWS region, into VMC on AWS, or even back on-prem onto your outpost. And in fact, Commvault will do this for your traditional database workloads as well, migrating them into EC2 or even RDS instances, which means you can now automate the optimization of your AWS architecture. Migration is not something you're going to do once. You're going to do it multiple times over the lifetime of the application. So let Commvault automate that to make it more repeatable and rapid. So I've been talking a lot about Outposts here today, and the reason for that is Commvault was recently named an AWS Outposts Service Ready Partner. We validated backup, recovery, migration, and DR of your workloads when residing on Outposts. So if you're looking for a low latency, localized compute and storage, effectively Amazon in your own data center, then Outposts is the answer for you. And Commvault will protect your EC2, EBS, RDS, and EKS workloads in the Outpost. And if you've got those workloads in the region today, we can help you migrate those automatically into the Outpost as well. Okay, so let's hear now from an absolute master of data management. And Russell, can you tell us a little bit about how you scaled this environment from initial cloud adoption to what are some clearly quite amazing numbers here today?
So sure, we have a mix of all kinds of apps globally, all backed by databases such as SAP HANA, Oracle. We have tons of MS SQL, a bunch of homegrown apps used all across our 3 AWS geographies. We basically have 2 regions per geography. We have typically it's primary and DR region, and so that makes up 6 regions amongst our 3 geographies. And that's all within 18 AWS accounts for our enterprise workloads. And not even shown here, we have a whole ton more of AWS accounts for our non-enterprise or consumer environment. And this basically translates to about 1.2 petabytes, roughly about 4,000 EBS volumes, managed and protected by about 150,000 snapshots, all orchestrated by Commvault.
Whoa, those are some daunting figures. How many people do you have managing all of that infrastructure today?
Oh yeah, we just have one guy, one FTE who manages the entire Commvault environment. That includes the snapshot orchestration that I mentioned just a moment ago, as well as a considerable non-AWS footprint. But just to be clear though, he's quite the expert, and he has a much larger team that he can lean on for help.
Okay, great. So what you're talking about there is effectively native RDS and EBS snapshot orchestration with a little bit of migration into your DR region. How did that translate into cost savings, assuming you didn't have to script all of this yourself?
Yes, actually, when we first started out, we did script it ourselves, and that worked fairly well. However, it became quite apparent that if we wanted to scale that to the size that we wanted to get to and the size that we are today, we would have to have some sort of intelligent automation from a cloud native vendor, and Commvault provides exactly what we need. I would say that our savings came in two forms. First off, the manageability aspect I just mentioned, that allows us, Commvault allows us to manage and potentially complex environment with much fewer people. And then the second thing would be the granularity of our data protection for DR. We basically hold the majority of our snapshots locally in our primary region, and a smaller portion of those snapshots get copied for the purposes of DR, and they're held for a lot shorter period. For example, you saw we did have about 150,000 snapshots. I would say roughly 120,000 are being held in our primary regions, and 30,000, if I'm doing the math right in my head, is in our DR regions, because you don't need as many snapshots in that area. So in our previous tools, we would have to have basically an equal number, and Commvault just made it easy to do that. So we're able to find immediate EBS storage savings for our replicated content.
Okay, great. I'm sure any sort of immediate EBS cost saving on your monthly bill was well received by your management. So as you started that migration, I'm sure your security teams were heavily involved. Were they trying to migrate you from traditional usernames and passwords and secrets into IAM roles?
Yes, security is a primary concern in most cases, and like all of you, we're still evolving in that.
Okay, great. So Commvault recently added STS assume role capability to the product, and this allows you to perform multi-account protection by requesting temporary credentials just for the period of the backup. So hint, if you're looking for easier management of your credentials and security within Amazon, and not have to store those credentials or refresh them in your backup tools like Commvault, STS assume role is the way. Now, great credential management is good, but there are still lots of threats out there, and that's why Commvault added ransomware protection to its product. Ransomware protection prevents ransomware and malware from writing to or accessing your backups, but it then continually monitors your environment and looks for anomalies, and then automatically alerts and acts when it tracks behaviors that look like they may be a threat to your very important data. Now, that's great, but what is the best protection from ransomware or malware? It's having a backup to recover from. And the best sort of backup to recover from is one that is air-gapped from your primary protection system. Commvault helps its customers by creating isolated accounts, infrastructure, and even storing these backups on immutable storage like S3 Object Lock, so that you've got a backup that you know is known good to recover your systems should you have an event that affects you. But more importantly, one of the things that Russell was talking about earlier was manageability across all of his locations. The business needs you to be able to explain to them that you are absolutely recovery ready, that the systems that you're protecting are protected in accordance with the business policy. And what you can see on the screen here is Commvault Command Center. It is that answer, that single pane of glass, to be able to see your protection SLA across all of your AWS and beyond data. You can quickly see your success and failure and drill down to that should there be an issue. But fundamentally, Command Center is going to help you define those policies once, utilize them everywhere where your data goes, regardless of whether that's alternate regions or back on-prem onto your outpost, and enforce those protection policies and SLAs. You're going to be able to then perform backup and recovery. You don't really need to log in and do the backup, as we've heard, that's all automated. But you're going to be able to use Command Center to perform granular recovery, perform migrations, and we're going to see in a moment to perform DR failover and failback as well. This is all integrated with your identity system and role-based access controls, so that you can give this capability not only to your help desk teams, but also to your end users if need be. The goal here is you don't need to log in every day, but when you do log in, you just want to complete the task that you're there to complete without having to know a lot of detailed specialist knowledge about the service that you are recovering. And that's what Command Center does for you. And it's what Russell's single admin is doing in his system today. So what happens after all of that, right? It's all puppies and rainbows now. Well, typically your hard work is well rewarded by more hard work. And the great success that you see in utilizing on-demand infrastructure in AWS typically results in management asking for an on-demand DR function. Russell, did you find that you did more DR when you migrated into AWS?
Well, I wouldn't say it was all puppies and rainbows, but we've always had DR, but the automation capabilities of Amazon and the orchestration offered by Commvault, it makes it very easy for us to enable DR for any additional workloads, and the costs are very well understood now.
Okay, great. Yes, definitely Amazon has made us much more aware of the criticality and importance of each of our systems and how to protect them easily using intelligent automation. Now, the next cab off the rank, or the next technology, is going to be application modernization and Amazon EKS, or containerization, within your business. And then finally, your governance and compliance needs didn't go away when you migrated some or all of your apps to Amazon. You still need to report to your legal counsel, to your auditors, and even to the regulatory bodies for your region or industry. And in fact, depending on your region or industry, those needs may increase as you migrate your data outside of the traditional data center. So, availability and disaster recovery. There are many, many ways to build for availability within Amazon, and Commvault believes one of the fastest ways you can achieve that is using Commvault disaster recovery. Depicted here for VMC on AWS, Commvault will capture all of the changes at your production site and replicate those to your DR site or region. This is all completely automated, and it's orchestrating all of that stuff you see on the screen there today, and many, many more things that I had to leave out for brevity. So effectively, what we're doing here and what Commvault delivers to you is one button failover and fail back for your Amazon workloads. And that allows you to perform all of these functions that you see on the screen here, powering things down and up and migrating that data, all without having to rely on your IT teams or your application owners, and also not having to rely on all of those manual procedures that we used to define for DR. Think of this as runbook as code. It's about making your DR failover and fail back repeatable and reliable. And Commvault does this for thousands of customers today. Now, the next technology, as I mentioned, was containerization or Kubernetes, which you will which you will find in Amazon EKS. And Commvault's uniquely capable of helping you on your application modernization journey by providing persistent storage for your containers, software-defined storage, and then the ability to perform protection of both the config and the persistent data for your containers. And once we have that captured, not only can we recover those containerized apps, we can migrate them, say, to your Outposts or another cluster, and we can provide DR for them. But depending on the sort of data that you have, you're going to need to be actively managing your data for both cost and risk. And Commvault Activate does that by scanning your environment, visualizing that data, and then allowing you to effectively systematically remediate any issues that you find. You can optimize your file storage, perform data governance for privacy and other sensitive data, and you can respond to e-discovery and compliance requests. Remember, identifying risk and remediating risks, or information risk within the cloud, is your responsibility. So be sure that you have the capability to look deep into your data and find those issues, and most importantly, remediate them. So we've been talking a lot about automation here today, and a lot about Commvault automation. But what if you have bespoke needs for automation? Well, Commvault works with some of the world's largest cloud service providers to help them automate and scale their business without having to add additional headcount and additional FTEs, like Russell does with his one admin. And we do that with 700 plus open APIs that effectively let you automate anything and everything within the Commvault platform. So rest assured, if you've got automation that you need to apply with Commvault into your larger IT ecosystem, the APIs exist to do that. Now, we've been talking about quite a large intelligent data management platform here today. You can get started with Commvault Complete Data Protection, which includes both backup and disaster recovery for your AWS workloads. And then you can expand out into some of those more advanced technologies that we've talked about today. But you can get started yourself right now in the AWS Marketplace. In about 20 minutes, you can have your first cloud control server up and running so that you can start managing and protecting your AWS services and making your data truly mobile and getting it where you need it to be. Thank you very much for watching today. And Russell Peters, thank you very much for absolutely showing us how this is done at petabyte scale.
Thanks for having me, Matt, and thanks everyone for watching.
Okay, thank you everyone. It's time to head off and go and grab a Coke now. But before you do, please fill out your survey and let us know how we did and whether this was useful for you. We want to be solving the problems that you're having today. Thank you.